Hello and welcome to Extreme Networks XIQ SC Flight School. In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to create switch profiles and perform a network discovery. To perform a network discovery of switches and devices in XIQ SC, we're going to show it in 4 steps. First, you must create a switch profile, and we're going to demonstrate this for a VSP, an XOS switch, and an ERS switch. Next, we'll create a site and a site map for which you will discover the switches and import into that site and site map. To accomplish this, we'll have to create some discovery parameters such as discovery actions and discovery IP ranges. And then lastly, we will create the topology map. For this, we're going to discover the following group of switches using the credentials along the right-hand side of the screen. For simplicity and speed, we're going to use mostly default settings that the switches come with. And for simplicity, we're going to be using the SNMP v2 with the default public and private strings. So I'm going to leave this open on the right-hand side. And we're going to reference it inside XIQ, Site Engine. So when you log into XIQ SC, to create a switch profile, you're going to come into Network and Administration. And you'll see here, there's a page called Profiles. To create a profile, there are 3 components: the SNMP credentials, the CLI credentials, and then the profile itself. We're going to be using the default SNMP credentials of public and private, and they are here made for us. So public v2 and private v2. If you're using custom strings for v1, v2, or v3, you would create them here. We're going to use the defaults. So first, we're going to create the CLI credentials for our VSP switches. So I'm going to add CLI. I'm going to call this VSP RWA for SSH. Default username for VSP switches is RWA, and they're configured for SSH. And the default password for VSPs is RWA, and you're going to insert it into the password credential fields right here. And if you have custom passwords and usernames, obviously you would insert them here. So we're going to save our work. Now with the SNMP credentials and the CLI credentials created, here it is, VSP RWA SSH, we're going to create the profile. So we're going to call it VSP RWA SSH again, or we'll call it RWA. Let's call it RWA. SNMP version is v2. We're going to use the default public and the right of private. Again, if you used custom SNMP strings, you will insert them here. And now we're going to associate the CLI credential to the policy. And there is the credentials that we created, VSP RWA SSH. And we're going to save that. And there it is. Next, we're going to create the policy for the XOS switch. So we're going to call this XOS admin SSH. Username for the switch is admin. We're going to use SSH, and XOS by default have no password, but if you configured an admin password, you would insert it here. And I'm going to save this. And now I'm going to create the XOS profile. So I'm going to call this XOS admin. SSH. We're using v2, SNMP, public and private, and there is our new CLI credential. So I now add the components to the profile and save. All right, so there's the first two, VSP RWA and Exos admin SSH. We're going to add another one. We're going to call this ERS 3600 RWA SSH. Default usernames on these are capital RW. We're going to log in with SSH, and we're just going to confirm that 3500s use the password of secure password. So I'm just going to copy this. Oh, it's actually a 3500. And we'll just confirm this looks good. Save. And now we'll add this to our profile. So we're going to call this ERS 3500 RW SSH SNMVB2 public and private for the community strings. And now we're going to go find our CLI credential policy and add it to the profile, save. So there's our three new profiles, VSP, Exos, and 3500. Lastly, we have one more switch, the ERS 5900 RW SSH, and the username again is RW, password is SSH, and password for these switches is secure. Again, this is a default password. Secure, secure. All right. Save. There's our CLI credential, and now we'll just add it to our new policy. We're going to call this ERS 5900 RW SSH. SNMP v2 public will leave as the default, right? Default. Again, if you're using custom strings, you will create them in the SNMP credential field and then append them to the policy, profile, and then we'll add the new CLI credential. There it is, ERS 5900 RW SSH, and save. There's our four new policies. So now what we'll do is we'll go back up here into network and devices. Now we're going to create a new site. So inside world, we're going to go to maps and sites, and we're going to create a new site, and we're going to call this Extreme Lab. And now we're going to add a map to this site. So create map, and we're going to call this lab map. All right. Now we can start and define the actions that XIQ Site Engine will take upon discovery. So we'll go into Extreme Lab. I'll delete this one. And we'll go to actions. You can change and move these options, but what we want is upon discovery, we want to automatically add the device, automatically set up as a trap receiver, automatically add it as a syslog receiver, and we want to add it to archive to have it backing up the configuration right away. And we're also going to add it to the map that we just created. And there is the lab map. We can also do custom configurations. We can also add it to the policy domain, access control for NAC, and analytics. We're going to keep it simple and just add it to the map and have it start receiving information from the switch. So we're going to save and save. We'll go back to Discover, and next we will start configuring some ranges to perform discoveries. So we know that the first two switches are connected to each other at 192.168.2.2 and 192.168.2.5. So they're connected. So I'm going to do a seed discovery. I'm going to point it at the first ERS 3500. I'm just going to bring up our map. So we're going to discover the first two switches here at 192.168.2.2 and 192.168.2.5. We're going to use a seed address. So I'm going to click on OK. And now I'm going to pick the 3500 series profile, save, and discover. As we come up to the Discover tab, we discover them right away, the ERS 3500 and the ERS 3500 at 192.168.2.5 and 192.168.2.2. Perfect. And it discovered the 2.5 switch because we use the seed option. So XIQ Site Engine gleans from the first switch that it has a directly connected neighboring switch. It used the correct profile, the ERS 3500 RW SSH profile, and here we go, the RW SSH profile. If we go back into devices, there they are. Perfect. Discovered. So let's discover now our 4 VSPs. And they are all between 192.168.2.30, 31, 32, and 33. So we'll discover them next. I'm going to add now a range discovery. So 192.168.2.30 and 192.168.2. We'll go 35. Now I'm going to select the VSP profile, save, and discover. As I come up to here, it discovers the first VSP. So it discovered 192.168.2.30, 31, 32, and 33, and use the correct profile to discover them. Perfect. I'll come back into devices, and there they are, added in. Perfect. Now we'll discover the XOS switch. It's at 192.168.2.41. So I'll come back in Extreme Lab. I'll create a new range. 192.168.2.40. And we know it's at 192.168.2.41, but we'll discover that range. And we'll use the XOS policy, save. Discover. And there it comes. discovered it at 192.168.2.41. It's a XOS 440G2 and discovered it with the XOS admin profile. Perfect. Come back into devices. Come to my site, and there it is. It's been added to my list. Lastly, we'll discover the ERS 5900, and I'll show you an issue that can happen. So we know that the ERS 5900 is on 192.168.2.50. So 192.168.2.51. Oh, 51. If your network has the same make and model and switches and uses the same profiles, this becomes easy. If you start to have dissimilar switches with dissimilar profiles, you can run into issues. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to discover this range between 2.50 and 2.51 using more than one profile. And I'll show you something that you can see and how to correct it. So we'll save, and discover. What's going to happen now is it's going to, this profile, sorry, the four profiles are going to discover the same switch multiple times because some of the credentials, such as the SNMP credentials, match. This discovery will now pause because XIQ Site Engine is going to be a bit confused of which policy to apply to the ERS. So what we're going to do right now is we can see now that these three profiles have been satisfied. So I'm going to clear the VSP. I know that the ERS 5900 is not an XOS switch, so I'm going to clear that policy. I know that the 3500 series profile is not going to work, so I'm going to clear this, leaving the ERS 5900 with the 5900 profile. This will run, and I will see it now come in here once the discovery process has completed. This could take some time. What I'll do is I'll clear this and I'll manually add it at this time. That will eventually discover, but I will show now how to manually add a device. I'm going to manually add it by IP address. I'm going to select the 5900 profile. I'm going to call it my 5901. Apply, device added, and there it comes, 5900. Now that everything's been discovered, we're going to add to a map. So I'm going to come into under the site, we create a map and lab map. XIQ Site Engine will then cluster the switches together, but we need to pull it out into a format that makes sense to us. So I know that my 440 is over here on the left. The 5900 is over here on the right. I know that my ERS 3501 is down here as my core. I know that I have another ERS 3500 over here with one link. I know that I have a 4450 connected to the core with another 4450 as a VIS cluster. And I have two VSP 4900s in another VIS cluster. Oh, grab one. Making a square with my four VSPs. Once I've laid it out in a format that makes sense, I'll click on save. And now that topology matches what I have in my diagram. All these links are now represented by the actual ports that are connected to and by status. On the right-hand side, we can further look at all the links and status and all the VLANs in the environment. And I can now drill in and identify where these VLANs are by device type. So in summary, we created the switch CLI credentials and the SNMP credentials and assigned them to a switch profile. We came into the network, came into world, created a new site and a new map. Inside the site, we created the discovery actions, add the device for trap, syslog, and backing up the configuration and having the switch come into a map automatically. We created all the ranges to discover the switches and associated that range with the correct policy. And then upon discovery, we have all the switches come into our list. And then lastly, we create our map with the discovered switches. So thank you for your time. Hopefully that was informative, and look forward to seeing you guys and hearing from you in future and seeing you in future sessions. Thank you very much. Bye now.